Welcome to a new episode of Rocket Rambles, where I ramble about something. Today, I'm doing another review, and this one is for Spider-Man Lotus, a fan film that recently premiered here on YouTube. And before we dive into it, I gotta give a disclaimer regarding the one thing that's probably been talked about the most regarding this movie, and that's the controversy around the director and the lead actor and some of the other people involved. Yes, they said a lot of very, very bad things in the past, and this review is not supporting any of those things. Racism is bad. This review is separating the art from the artist and simply analyzing the film as it is. And with that out of the way, let's get started. Now, I actually knew about this project before all the controversy happened due to the first trailer, which really caught my interest. I'd never seen a fan film that just looked so polished and professional. It almost looked like just like a real movie trailer. So when it released, I thought I'd watch it to see how it turned out and potentially what I could learn from it as a guy who's also made a fan film in quotation marks, and also wants to make more fan films in the future. As for my relationship with Spider-Man as a character and a brand, I think I'm a basic fan. I've watched a decent chunk of the movies, and I really like all the movies. You know, Spider-Verse is one of my favorite movies of all time, the first one, and the second one is really good as well. So I do like Spider-Man, but I'm not that deep into the comic lore or anything, which I know this movie's pulling a lot from. So this is my first time seeing a lot of the source material that this movie's covering. So I'm just a basic fan. I like the movies, that's about it. And now talking about the film itself, the biggest positive I can give is that it looks very, very good. It's a well-made film. Very professional quality, good camera work, good lighting, good, soundtrack and stuff. It feels like an actual film. And that's like the only thing I liked about the movie. The rest of this video is just gonna be me complaining about it because I didn't like this movie at all. The pacing was agonizing. There are so many establishing shots of New York, and it's like, I get it, we're in New York. You don't need to spend 2 minutes of the runtime with just establishing shots. It's like he got like a cool fancy drone and just wanted to show off how cool the drone was, so just put in as many shots as possible. It's like, I get it! I get where we are. And then there's also just scenes of the characters moping around and looking sad and walking down the street, looking, depressed and everything. And it's like, I get it. They're sad. Yeah, they're sad. I get it. I'm sorry that I'm not saying a lot here. It's just you have to really watch the movie to understand how bad this pacing is and how nothing gets accomplished for the majority of the runtime. It's either establishing shots or characters looking sad. And it's like, I get it. They're all sad. I know that. In these scenes where they're looking sad, try to progress them in some way. Show us something that we don't know yet, because it feels like it just lingers in that one emotion that the viewer's already aware of. They aren't building, the scene's not progressing forward. I know that this is supposed to be a drama exploring grief, but this film has no forward momentum. Even a drama needs something pushing it forward as a plot. There's no real end goal in sight for the entire film. It's what are we doing here? There's not a clear objective for Peter except stop having grief, I guess. And then there's a lot of monologuing by Peter, voiceover, and there's so much of it. I get that it's him talking to those tapes for Gwen, which is shown at the end of the movie, but still, he says things like, oh, we were such good friends, or, oh, I loved this aspect about Gwen, but we never see any of these things, so it means nothing. He's telling instead of showing. Show don't tell is a basic rule, and maybe they couldn't show everything for budget reasons, because this is a fan film, but still, let me see how much he cared about Gwen, instead of just hearing how much he cared about Gwen. When Gwen died, I felt nothing, because I didn't really connect with Gwen as a character, or at least, Peter's relationship with her, or the friend group as a whole, because the whole movie's about oh, our friendship got wrecked. But they didn't really do a lot as friends beforehand. You should have shown the friends hanging out a bit more before all the tragedy happened, so the tragedy could hit the viewer as well. That beginning scene where they're all alive and friends, it just felt so awkward, and I never got the impression that they were a friend group, and I'm not sure if this is just the actors being unfamiliar with each other or the script or whatever, but there was no clear friendship dynamic before Gwen died. And that's how you could have made, her dying hit harder, by showing that they were actually friends. But that one scene with them at the movie theater, I didn't really get friendship vibes at all. It just felt like they were reading their lines off a script. And speaking of that movie theater scene, actually, I just remembered another positive about this movie. If you look in the background in the movie theater, there's a poster for The Boss Baby 2. And that's a positive, because I think that's funny. Okay, back to the negatives now. Now let's talk about Peter Parker, who just acts like a jerk to everyone. I get that he has trauma because his girlfriend just died, but he goes so far. He's just being mean to everyone. There's like 2 scenes at the beginning with MJ and Harry where he's just going off on them and just like critiquing them as people. It's like, you're a stupid idiot. You just care about parties. Why are you so sad? I know your dad just died, but my girlfriend just died, so you should care about her more. Blah, 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 blah. It's like, I get it. He has trauma. He has grief. He's processing it. But also, he's just, there's like a line, you know, like a line of believability. It's like, no, I just think you're a jerk. I don't know if your trauma can justify this anymore. And the worst example of this is when he goes and meets Tim, and this kid, you know, he's dying of a terminal illness and stuff, and so Tim called him so Spider-Man can, you know, like, give him some joy in his last few days. But he just goes there and crushes this kid's hopes and dreams by just saying, I'm not a real hero. Here, I'm gonna do some trauma dumping on you, and I'm gonna tell you every mistake I ever made, and how my uncle died, and how I'm a terrible person, and also how all your dreams and fantasies are just a lie. Why, you shouldn't think I'm a hero. I'm just kind of, you know, an idiot. So, you should die sad. This movie spends like 2 minutes recreating the Uncle Ben scene from, you know, every single Spider-Man movie. And it's like, why are we doing this? Why? This is a repeat. Everyone who's watching this movie knows this stuff. So you're just recreating these scenes on the budget of a fan film, which is going to be worse than the real movie. So why are we doing this? And why are you telling this 10-year-old kid this? He didn't need to know that. He just thinks you're a superhero. Why? Again, I don't think the trauma justifies what his actions are here. I don't know how much of this is being pulled from the comics, so maybe some people will be like, oh, this was here in the comic too, he's just recreating it. But even if it was in the comic, I can still criticize, you know, the idea, you know, like, I still don't think this is a good scene even if it's being pulled from the comic, or, you know, like the execution of this. Maybe there's a world where this is executed better, but in this version of the film, I just kind of hate Peter Parker. Like, he's just being so mean to everyone. And then he just decides to become Spider-Man again after looking at some pictures on Tim's wall, when a few minutes ago he was like trauma dumping on the kid and like being really mean to him. Then a few minutes later he like looks at some pictures of the wall and he's like, oh, you know what? Yeah, I'm Spider-Man again. Yeah, we're good. And it's like, that felt so rushed to me. Like, he spends an hour and a half of the movie being so grumpy, and then like 2 minutes he completely changes his worldview. There was no gradual growth. It was just instantaneous. He goes outside and talks with Tim's mom, and then in like 3 sentences she's like, hey, Spider-Man, I think you should be a little nicer. And he's like, oh, okay. Like, is that all it took? Is that all it took to change him? Really? So, in summary, I did not like this film. And maybe that's just because I'm not the right audience for it. It does seem like it's pulling a lot from the comics and it's kind of expecting that you know these things going into it. So maybe I am just not the right audience, but to me this just feels like the wrong way to tell this story. I like the broad idea of this story, you know, Spider-Man trying to overcome his grief with Gwen and trying to, like, you know, get that hope back through a child. I think that's a good idea. And I respect how this is a fan production, you know, like, fan productions are cool. And this is definitely one of the cooler fan productions I've seen, but I don't want to watch it again. It just, I didn't like it. It was so long and it was so dreary. I didn't like it. I'd give it like a 2 or a 3, and I hate to be so mean, but you know, I just didn't like it, I gotta be honest. I reviewed Mutant Mayhem last week, and I was rather critical of it, but I would watch it 10 times over again rather than watching this. Mutant Mayhem's, like, fun, and there's a structure and a plot, and there's not a scene where Splinter trauma dumps on children. Actually, what? Maybe. But that was better executed than this one. Well, I'm done rambling for now. Leave your own ramble in the comments below. Do you think Spider-Man Lotus as a film swings high or gets crushed by a building? Thanks for listening to my ramble, and I hope you come back for the next one, where hopefully I won't be as angry.